Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George-Affleck.
And it's time for
A choo-choo-choo, a choo-choo-choo, UnSpun.
Trains, planes, and automobiles.
Trains, planes, and craziness at Parkboard continues. We can never get away from it.
Okay, we have to start hyper local.
Yes.
For the people who love it when who say, please talk more about Surrey and less about Vancouver. Rumor has it,
yes,
depending on when you're listening or watching this, rumor has it that the province will be making the decision on the Surrey Police Services versus Surrey RCMP, whether there will be that transition or the transition back or whatever's right. Costing Surrey $1 billion right now. A decision is imminent. So, but the sources are saying that it's coming on your Friday, depending on when you're watching or listening to this UnSpun podcast. Hopefully you've gone to unspunpodcast.com and you get it direct to your email. So you got it on Thursday, like boom, like this, like that.
Thanks to my team at Curve. Helping
That's
me out,
it.
getting your stuff
your
out.
Curve Communications. Okay, so but lots going on in Vancouver City Hall. Like
once
lot.
again, not a quiet. I was thinking this morning, getting up. I think what are we going to talk about? There's not much going on. And then I made a little list. I'm like, oh man, there's a whole bunch of things happening. Especially like literally this morning, some stuff we'll talk about.
So let's go first and foremost with something that I think is confusing for people when we start using acronyms of things and processes and programs, and people are like, what's Vandu?
Vancouver Area Network Drug User, something like that. I forget, to be honest. I think it's a Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users.
So in support of those who struggle with addiction.
Yes.
That's funding for a group. Vandu is a group of people who do what? He's looking it up. I love it.
I don't want to get it wrong because
that's
we're
right.
talking about
Let's go in real time.
So is Vancouver Area Network of drug? Is that what I said? Of drug users?
You did. Okay. You did.
So it's a group of former users who work to improve the lives of people who use drugs through user-based peer support and education. So
okay, that sounds good, right?
Yeah.
So why would the city council and Vancouver City Council be like, yeah, no?
Well, they gave funding for them to clean up the streets in our downtown Eastside area. So it was a funding mechanism for the organization. In order to, obviously, funding for that kind of organization would be tough to get. Like, where would the money come from? So the city, in its wisdom, some years ago, created this program for micro cleaning, they call it, and they would then clean the streets. These people would go from that organization. They would get paid, I think it was $20 an hour. They would pay them through the organization to go there and micro clean. And micro clean means, I don't know what that means, to be honest. There's cleaning. I said this on Global a couple of weeks ago. I said, what is when I tell my kid to clean his room, I mean clean your room. So when I pay the city taxes, and they're saying, well, we're going to have somebody else micro clean. I'm like, hey, clean the streets, Vancouver, the city. Yeah, that's what I'm paying you for. So, anyways, it was in my mind. It was, and it's not anything against that organization. It was a funding mechanism for them to be able to operate. And as it turns out, maybe they weren't doing a good enough job on the cleaning, and so the cities decided to take that money back and put it out for tender.
I was listening to Mayor Ken Sim in council, the clip of him speaking about why the funding was going to be redirected, because there was a lack of accountability as to how they were being at all impactful. Then I saw one of the representatives from Vandu say, what we do is important and it's necessary. And I don't know for sure what microcleaning means. If we're going to use the analogy of, getting the teenager, because we both have similarly aged teenagers. If the example is to go clean up your room, it's like, I'm not just asking you to take out the pizza that you've shoved under your
dirty
bed.
Socks or whatever.
I want you to actually put the laundry, completely in the laundry room or whatever.
And where your computer is, I want that dusted. It seems like that's
you and I
every
see you,
corner.
Bro. I see you, bro. But I mean, was the goal maybe, and I don't know for sure, but I dig into this a bit more, but was the goal maybe to have a cleaning team that was less disruptive to people who might be marginalized or living with addiction and maybe need a more gentle way than a big truck coming through, spraying down the edge of the sidewalk and maybe taking out their tent?
Well, yes and no. I mean, there's another program that the BIAs get, and they get funding for you. So you see those guys as well down in the downtown core. And all BIAs, they get funding to then hire people who are
Right.
in various situations, and it's a great program. So this one was specifically for the downtown east side. So yeah, I guess you could argue that they had a better connection with the people and would be harassed less, or harassed, as I used to be forced to say on CBC when I worked there. Harassed. And we'll get into some CBC stuff later.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah. So maybe, but I think we look at the downtown east side and we go, it's a failure at every level with regards to tents, regard to cleanliness, regard to graffiti, alley, everything. I mean, it's just not working. Clearly,
you brought up graffiti and the new plan for Chinatown. I mean, that's a big pivot. The shift, the investment there. Some of the stories, I mean, not surprisingly, I mean, the foot traffic basically disappeared in Chinatown. And if you haven't been down there, if you're a BC resident, if you're a Metro Vancouver resident, you haven't been down to Chinatown for a while, I highly recommend that you go.
Yeah.
And brace yourself, because it's shockingly different. I feel for the businesses that continue to struggle down there to try and find a way, but with not being able to find a place for parking versus, trying to afford to be able to go downtown in the current economy. Like, there's all these reasons, but the graffiti and the crime and
then there's the natural attrition that's happening. I think Chinatown was always a challenge when I was in office, and it's always been a challenge politically for any neighborhood. Neighborhoods evolve, and what is the role of government when the neighborhood evolves? You look at the role of Chinatown in its form from when I was a kid, which was, it was a very busy shopping district for all, very specific.
We went there weekly.
Food, right? Yeah. So now, and then T&T comes along and they've got a big store down there. And then Richmond, of course, grows up, and now people go to Richmond generally to do their shopping. Asian generally who would have gone to Chinatown. So you have this natural evolution of people's habits, and so there's that. Right. Can you possibly turn back the clock and turn Chinatown into what it was? And then there's the argument that always the Disneyification, turning it into like a
Disneyfication.
Yeah, Disneyfication, turning Chinatown into kind of like a really fake Chinatown. And there's a fine balance. How do you do that? And there's, of course, there's social societies that are down there that are very entrenched in the community in a good way. These associations and things like that. And then there's, of course, other organizations, and there are some shops down there, but a lot of empty shops as well. And then couple that with the horror of what we see in the downtown east side and the crime and the mess and all that stuff.
And Gastown. So talking about Gastown, downtown east side, Chinatown, it's basically flanking, and the lack of development, frankly, in the flats down there in Falls Creek.
Well, the flats and downtown east side in general, the community plan is downsized. There's low density, only social housing, no private, no strata, no nothing. So that if you believe in a mixed community, the community plan for that neighborhood is intentionally against a mixed community. It's intentionally for renters only and for low income housing.
Yeah. Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. No, it's not. It's really not. Speaking of not working, Park Board?
Well, it's working and it's not working. And I think they got a little taste. This new Park Board, the ABC gang there, got a little taste of what it's like to be in power and what it's like when the media turn against you. And when one commissioner, who's the Green Party guy, he's pretty effective in his opposition style. As is, Christine Boyle this week. We'll talk a bit about that on council. And I know this game. And we're having been journalist myself, and you get the setup, you knock it down, right? You set up the story, then you knock it down. You set it up, knock it down. That's basic journalism. So you get one side, you get the other side. Say the opposite. Yeah. That's good. That's journalism. In its basic
everybody gets
form.
Heard.
Yeah, that's right. And you want to make sure that guy is saying that, but maybe it's somebody else against that. So, we have a situation here on a couple of levels. One is there was two issues that came up. Well, three kind of. One is the train and what's going on with that, and why can't we get that thing up and running? And what a mess! This is a little choo-choo train, and that's my reference at the top of the show.
Right.
This has been a disaster. It's a metaphor in some ways of the management of the park board over the last 15 years, just incompetence, really, just
especially
terrible.
the last 4.
Yeah, well, and no, it's been going on for a while. They've
It has been going on for a while, but
the last
the
4 years
whole
for sure.
overgrowth
Yeah,
garbage, like we're just going to let everything grow wild for the bees.
That's right.
Is ultimately like, okay.
It's the broken windows concept, right? Just,
broken window.
Or don't paint your house, and when you don't paint your house on my street, then I don't paint my house, and the whole neighborhood goes to shit. So, oops. E-rating. So there's the train as a sort of metaphor. Then there's the bike lane removal, and there's this challenge I think that they're facing. It's like, oh my God, this is going to cost a lot of money to remove this, and how do we? They're battling this situation about not removing it as quickly as perhaps some people would like, and only removing part of it. They're going to go study, and so of course, from an opposition point of view,
I don't want to study.
Well, there
I don't
needs
want
to
to.
be
You know what's going to happen though?
The
study is going to cost a fortune. The plan is simple, George. The plan is to take the park and put it back the way it was before. Yeah. And whatever the cost is for that, I can only imagine what the cost was to install it. I can only imagine, and it happened in a day.
We'll never know.
Exactly, which is broken. That is a huge problem, and part of what needs to be the story here and isn't. What the cost has been of the hijacked agenda of this particular governing body, this unique to Vancouver governing body that has been radicalized in ways that have just destroyed our parks. I'm so angry.
I didn't know that, Jody.
But you can't go up. I am so mad, but it's not just about bike lanes, George. It's about the minutia now. We're going to have, do you know the man hours, the wasted time, the cost of just heating the building and lighting the room and renting the space where people sit down and debate whether or not we should remove the garbage. Like, take out the garbage.
Say, you've come on an idea that I think the ABC gang should think about from a comms point of view. Is they really should have released how much it did cost. That should be their first set. Saying, how much it cost to put this crappy bike lane in that was half-assed, and this much money, and it's gonna and unfortunately, because of mismanagement, we have to spend this much money to get out of it. But you know what? We're not going to do that again. We're not going to waste money like that. We're going to do it right. And I'm sorry that they did that. But the challenge they have no they have a real cash problem. They have a real park board
because there's nowhere to make money because you can't park your car.
Parking, but they have only a certain amount of. They can't just tax as easy as the city can.
I know.
So the other issue though that came up, and this is, Jordan from Global.
Jordan Armstrong
did a story. Somewhat, I mean, it was just a frustrating story because it's like, oh my God, not this again. But it was more coming from staff that were not willing to go on camera, not willing to speak to any of the issues really. And I think that's an issue that, this closed-mindedness, this lack of willingness to communicate properly from management.
So who hires them?
That's the part. The park board commissioners are the final on the GM for certainly.
Right. So let's talk about that because
we don't want to get too much into that, but I would say they need to address management style, whether it's Donnie Rose, who's the GM, or whether it's other senior managers. That needs to be addressed. They need, if they want to spend some time, and I'm betting they are, is that they need to analyze their staffing situation, and they're going to have to make some tough decisions. Whether they make them or not, that's the ultimate decision. They have the power to do it, but it's going to be expensive. If they decide to get rid of some senior staff, they're talking, crazy money.
Well, I mean, crazy money is being spent doing not what they're hired to do. And I'm not talking about any specific person, but communicating, informing, and keeping up and maintaining our parks in the city is the job. If I don't do my job, I'm fired. So, whatever that looks like, and it's really crappy that these systems are set up that people who don't do their jobs well get fired and then get paid for years, or big buyouts and payouts and what have you. That's all of that money piece, George, it makes me crazy, because at the end of the day, what good is all of this money being spent on all of this employment when the actual end result isn't done even remotely? Like in our lifetimes, you and I in our 50s can remember a time when parks in the city were that of envy across not just Canada, but the world. Like our parks were these places and spaces. And now you go there and it's sad.
And you
It's
only have to
sad.
go across Boundary Road into Burnaby to see how good parks
Beautiful
can
parks.
be. I mean, they're the pools are, it's like, it's crazy. It's just incompetence.
That's the biggest point.
Incompetence,
You know what?
politically, staff-wise, whatever, misdirection, misguided energies and focus. And so
That is the best point you've made ever. That's the best point you've made ever.
Wow, that's saying something, because I've made some pretty amazing points.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're pretty smart, George, but that's why I like talking to you, because it calms me down. I feel like I'm being gaslit.
Really?
I feel like I'm being gaslit by how our park board is set up. And that's not a slight against the people there and right now. It's about the constant. I just said prior to starting hitting record today on this podcast, I said to you, it's exhausting. And I'm looking at Jordan Armstrong getting attacked by people within it, you know, because he's saying a privately owned, family-run choo-choo train does not cost what it costs to have that train in Stanley Park, where families come in from all over the province, all over the city, all over Vancouver. Some even ride their bikes there just to go on the train.
You know
I
how
loved
much
going on that train.
Here's a little factoid. Remember the train, that little old train that used to go from Granville Island to Olympic Station?
I loved it.
Yeah. You know how much that costs the city per year to run? Totally $80,000. $80,000, because it was run by volunteers. And so, you know, the city contributed a bit of money, and they lent a space for the facility for them to park in. And it was run by volunteers. It was fantastic. And then Vision cut their funding, and the volunteers said, well, we can't do it for free. We can't pay it out of our pockets. And it was ridiculous. I was so, and I know it wasn't ideal. It's not transit. It was a tourist attraction for the city. And it took people, it actually did some good work taking people from Granville Island to a train station that was sort of a long walk if you were down on what,
but if you were down coming off a cruise ship and you hopped on Waterfront Station and you landed there at Cambie and 6th Avenue, and then you take it over to Granville Island, and then you come across on the little ferry, and then you walk through the downtown core, and you're back at your cruise ship. This is what we're doing. And that takes us back to Chinatown, because it is with the cruise lines coming back and all that starting up again. And don't get me started on the cruise ships as a thing, but that brings in a lot of tourism, and Chinatown is about tourism dollars. They're not going to Richmond. The people that come into Vancouver and want to see the Disneyfication or whatever. I used to go to San Francisco all the time. I loved going to, my folks lived down there. And I would always go to Chinatown. We'd go down and have dim sum lunch, or we'd go down and have a delicious bowl of soup or whatever. And that's one of the destination pieces. And it's just, all of it is so, I guess we're just going to have to get used to the fact that this last 4 years has really hit us where we live. Let's talk about the province now. We got to get to the rental thing first, the rental funding.
Well, their city announced this week they're closing the, what is it called? The rentals office, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
It was created
Isn't
under
that
Vision.
That's where people who have problems with their rentals could go to find out what action they could take, right? That's what I'm
sure. I mean, I think the province has something like that because they oversee the rental system in British Columbia. So their decision was to remove that office and take that funding and put it towards other nonprofits in the city, not to cut the funding, but to remove it somewhere else to people who are competent in potentially helping the actual rental community, as opposed to a politically motivated, front for caring, which it was, of course, renters are important. They're 50% of the homes in the city are rented.
55. Yeah.
55 now. It used to be 50. That's because of all the grants that the city gave private developers to build the last 15 years. Anyways, that they didn't need, because guess what? You make a lot of money on rental. So they closed the office. So, somewhat of a brave move. It's certainly feeds into a narrative for those people who would want to position ABC as conservative and not centrist. And that will be the challenge. And, seeing, I think Mike Klassen, who's city councilor, being the sort of face of it is interesting. I would say that he was very involved in the development for the arts community he was the chair of the board of the, oh my God, I'm totally blanking on the name. It's built a rental housing for artists, retired artists. And
Right.
there's one in Cole Harbor and there's one in New West, I think. So, or Burnaby. Anyways, but he's also, maybe I would say, somewhat more conservative than perhaps his other councillors on the political spectrum, based on my personal experience with
Interactions with
him, and
them.
I know
Yeah.
Mike from way back.
I know Mike. Yeah.
But he's also a pragmatist, of course. But
I know him
so
from BC Care Providers, so I
that's right.
don't necessarily know him as
That's
a
right.
conservative. I know him
So
as a fiscally conservative
yeah,
person
and
who's trying to find a way to spend the dollars in a meaningful way. So,
yeah. So my
depending
guess
on
is
what this
they're
looked like. Yeah.
putting that on him because there's already that perception. He can take that heat,
Yeah.
so the mayor doesn't have
Right.
to. It's a
Got it.
strategic move in my mind, and it's probably a good one.
Mm.
But I think
Did you?
I think looking at those organizations, I think, although they're not saving us any money yet so far that I've seen, whatever they're doing, it's all
Right.
they're still just moving the money around. And I'm going as a taxpayer, and I think everybody else is going, okay, but is that am I hearing that taxes are going to go up another 7 to 10% this year? Is that what I'm hearing, or more? Because that's not cool. So I think this is the challenge when we get into budget time, which is it's later than
That's what I was
usual.
going to say. But you said do it later, right?
Yeah,
Like
so
that was your advice to this council, was to don't rush to the budget.
Mm-hmm.
And what it feels like to me right now is that they're unpacking Pandora's box, right?
Yeah.
They're actually unfolding the
And within
layers
Pandora's
of what,
box, there's another 10 Pandora boxes. So it's like
and
a mess.
there's no denying that.
Yeah.
Right? It's a mess. I actually said that to somebody. Who was I talking to? Because we got David-Eby coming on Steele and Vance tonight at 8:00,
Yeah.
and they, for whatever reason, instead of hearing David-Eby, they heard the mayor instead of premier. I said the premier's coming on. Oh, well, it's about time he came on. I'm like, no, yeah, I invited him and he's coming on. You're thinking Ken Sim, because we were supposed to have Ken Sim on weeks ago, and for whatever reason, we're unavailable, unable to get the mayor to come on. We got all the way to yes, and then he canceled at the last minute as people were like, oops, there was double booked, whatever. Anyway,
sure.
But I, in all of that, I said, I'm not really surprised that the mayor's hard to get right now, because there are a lot of jobs I wouldn't want in this world, and that is one of them. Because
yeah, tell me about it. I
right?
think that he's and he's got a steep learning curve on the comm side. This isn't he doesn't come from a communications background. For me, It was when I was in office. It was an easy transition to be talking in front of a camera, because I'd been in communications and been a journalist.
That's how we know
TV.
each other.
Yeah. So, but if you've never really done that every day and been in a scrum, it's scary. And to be drilled by competent journalists is scary. So, but you know what? The only way to learn, it's got to throw yourself in there. And then if you don't have an answer, don't make it up. Just say, I don't know. I'm going to get back to you on that. That's a good question. That's all you can do. Don't make it up. Or just say the same things over and over again, which is what most politicians do.
Right. Which is very frustrating. Or they eat up all the time.
That's a good question. I'm not going to tell you about something else.
Let me tell you about all the things that I'd like to get out to the people. No, but I like your point. And hi, Mayor Sim, when he watches this or listens to this, he will hear that piece of advice, which is, I think, the refreshing piece that will resonate with voters now, is when a politician says, you bring up a very good point, and I'm going to look into that, and I will circle back with you, or I will get back to you on that, or I'll have my people give you that information, whatever that answer is, because you're not expected to know everything about everything.
Oh, how can
but you do have to answer the question. So back to what we were talking about with regard to Pandora's box that is being unpacked.
Mm-hmm.
What I am enjoying about this current administration versus the prior is the regular, steady information stream from the 42 communications people.
Are there
Cheers.
still 42, or there's 62,
I don't know.
12? I'd like to know that, please.
I would like to know that. We should find that out. Yeah. Let's find out from Patrick.
Please, ABC Vancouver, send out a press release about how many staff there actually are in the communications, so we don't have to keep making it up and guessing the number based on historical data from when I was there. So
it's we want the line items, right? We want the line items. We want to know what the budgets are. It feels to me like many do when walking into a new situation, whether it be in politics and policy or any job, is when you have to look and go, wow, this is way not what I was told it was. So figuring that out. We have to
Or
do that together.
or you go, this is not what I was, but actually I understand now why it's that much money.
Right.
So,
Right.
I
Right.
think it
It
can be
brings a
helpful.
different level.
It can be helpful,
Yeah.
but it is a mess, that budget, because there are people that, from a staffing point of view, that cross over into different departments. So if I said to you, or to the finance department, I want the budget for the communications department. And so they'd have to go, okay, well, yeah, sure, there's 43 staff there, but there's one over there, and there's two there, and there's one there, and then there's this much budget going to this department, and there's an advertising budget
Right.
over there, and there's this and that.
Right.
And so, but you know what? That's what corporations do. You put these financials, and they do have the numbers. They
Of course
perhaps
they do.
they're not tagging them properly. They need to perhaps improve the way they track all their money.
Yeah. Let's talk provincially a bit. Did you see the protest in front of David-Eby's
Yeah,
office
and I
on
think
West
this will
Broadway?
lead into our final brief topic about an international
Yeah.
one, because being a politician, sucks, because you take a lot of pressure. And I just, this protest, so specifically against, it's obviously the truckers, right? The anti-vaxxers or whatever.
Awful.
Is this still an issue? Are we still talking about this? So,
I saw a truck go by because I drove by it. I drove by
Yeah.
it when it was set up, and people were screaming about how David-Eby's going to get fired because of C-36 and blah, blah, blah. Like, it was just,
Right.
But a truck went by that said COVID kills 99, or COVID survival rate 99.7%. That was written on the side of a big white truck with two upside down Canadian flags, all of it. Like, it's just honking horns and the whole nine. And I'm just thinking to myself, what the hell's wrong with you people? Like,
well, I saw.
But even in the 99.7 number, like, okay, so 3% of the world's population is how many millions of people? Like,
I saw a joke. I forget
seriously?
who sent it to me, or if it was like, man got hit by a car, fell off a bridge. COVID is the reason, or something like that. It's like, COVID or vaccination is why.
Vaccination.
What?
But look at China.
Fell off a bridge, but it's because he got vaccinated is why that happened. You
look at China and the fact that they're screaming for mRNA vaccines over there, because that's why so many people are dying. Millions and millions of people are dying over there right now. Like, the numbers are crazy.
We'll never know.
We'll never know. But there's new science that is coming out now about long COVID, and how being vaccinated is the number one thing to protect from long COVID being longer. It doesn't prevent everything. The people who want to scream that you still get COVID when you're vaccinated. Yeah, we know. We know. But you also survive it. And you also have, I'm 2 weeks into my 5th dose. And I will keep getting vaccinated. And I'm mad at the people that yell and scream and honk their horn with disinformation anywhere they go. But it's like this politician vitriol, like nastiness that they're throwing out there. Like, it's
makes
next
you not
level.
want to be a politician, almost like a certain leader in New Zealand.
Jacinda Ardern, she just said, I can't do it anymore.
I've run out of fuel in the tank, I think is her quote. And a little bit, that's, I was never certainly at the level, and she's an international,
treasure.
Yeah, she's certainly on the COVID side. They went COVID zero, like China. And
they're an island.
And but they chose to get the right vaccines when the time came.
Yeah.
But and there's an election coming in the fall. She's been there 5.5 years. On the surface, I must say that looking at it, she probably wasn't going to win again. They have a very complicated system down in New Zealand. It's a not first past the post. It's so she probably wasn't going to win again, and I think she kind of knew that. So I'm not saying she's a liar for deciding. I'm
going to come at it from a different way.
But having been a politician, and the abuse you get, and what Eby was getting yesterday, in front of his, this is the kind of stuff that is exhausting. It really is exhausting, and you wonder to yourself all the time when you're in office and you're getting that kind of abuse, no matter who you are. Do I need this in my life? People asking questions, prying into your personal life.
I'm going to go one up from that.
It's brutal.
That when you have lived it, you mentioned David-Eby, he's living it, but a woman lives it harder.
Yeah.
A woman journalist has it harder than a male journalist. A woman politician has it harder than a male politician. And looking at her announcement and how brief, like, she's out like in 2 weeks. She's like, this will be over by February 7th. But looking at her make the announcement, all I could think was, she doesn't look well. She looks like
Tired.
her physical appearance, but thin and like she's a vibrant, powerful, small but vibrant and powerful woman, and she just looks like the tank is empty.
Yeah,
like
she can't go
fight
18
she
hours
cannot
a
fight
day
longer.
working for 5 years now. When did COVID start? She's been basically, full on for 3 years, and
This is year 4,
no
yeah.
chance. And now going into an election, which is the hardest job. That's a 24-hour day job. You don't, 4 hours of sleep at night,
Right.
if you're lucky, when you're running for that kind of level. So you're sure she's thinking, going, do I need this in my life? Right?
No.
And I've got a guy I want to marry, so,
right.
And 5.5 years as prime minister, leaving a high, it's a good way to go. And politicians generally don't know when to leave.
The sad punctuation here, though, for me, and I felt this way when you left politics, is, I respect you, and our political leanings are maybe not completely aligned, but we find our moderate middle. You're smart and you're active and you're a good person. And when I look at people who are smart and active and good people, even if I don't politically lean into everything that they stand for, we need people like that, like you, like that. And I think David-Eby is doing a hell of a job already, just trying to, unpack the Pandora's box. But eventually, when we look south of the border and we see George Santos and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, these people are on like significant, what do they call them? Councils or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
The committees. It's
a lot of power.
We could find ourselves very quickly in a place of chaos if we don't have good people.
It's true. And it's hard to get people
in politics. It is. I wouldn't do it. I get that all the time. Are you running for it? No.
Yeah. It's really good money too. Canada. Not such good money. No. Anyways, yeah. We're out of time.
Anyway.
Oh God, look at that. So,
okay.
Kudos to
Twitter.
her. So,
Twitter.
_ George _ Affleck.
You go at george_Affleck on Twitter, at Jody Vance on Twitter. unspunpodcast.com is where you click, add your email, get this lovely podcast in your inbox every single Thursday. Thank you to Curve Communications for doing that, George. Peace out.
Bye.